Hi folks, today we're going to start talking about colored pencils and how we are going to finish up our mandalas.
Okay, so before you start coloring in your mandalas, you should be totally finished with your inking of your design, drawing your concentric circles, and filling up with different sort of mandala inspired patterns and designs. So I've done the center, this circle. I left this circle alone because I have the octopus tentacle in it. I didn't finish this part, but there'll be these sort of petal looking things here, and then bubbles all the way around. So once you're happy with your design, you're ready to start the coloring process. Before you start coloring, you do want to go over the whole thing with a nice big soft eraser and remove any extra pencil marks, okay, because we don't want the pencil to interfere with our design. So go ahead and erase all the pencil marks. You don't need the grid lines anymore, so those can also get erased, okay? Make sure your name is also on the back of your work here, okay? Now, before you get started on this, we want to practice using colored pencils, okay? So the first thing you guys are going to do is you have this worksheet for your sketchbook. You can tape it into your sketchbook. You don't necessarily need to fill this out, but it does help you remember, you know, so you sort of have your own color wheel. So even if you want to just make little marks of some colors, you don't have to fill in the whole thing. Your primary colors, okay, are red, yellow, and blue. Your warm colors are this half of the color wheel, the colors that remind you of the sun or fire. Your cool colors are this half of the color wheel, reminds you of, you know, the ocean or ice or the movie Frozen, okay? Secondary colors are the colors that happen when you mix two primary colors. So blue and yellow make green, red and blue make violet, and red and yellow make orange. Nothing mixes to make red, blue, or yellow, but those three colors mix to make everything else on the color wheel. And then in between that, you have your tertiary colors or your intermediate colors. So that would be a combination of red and orange. So it's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, green, and see how they're a hyphenated name. So you can fill this out. You can, you can even just jot down notes or whatever. Complementary colors. Those are two colors that are directly opposite each other on the color wheel. Blue and orange, red and green, yellow and violet, also yellow, orange, and blue, violet. Okay, so these colors are high contrast. They also, when they mix, make a neutral color. So for painting, and you mix a red and a green, you'll get like a brownish gray color, okay? And that's your neutral. When they're next to each other, they're vibrant and contrasting, and when they're mixed, they make a neutral, okay? So these are all things that you need to know about color as we are working on this. So this is your color wheel worksheet. You can take some notes using one of these color wheels there. Then you're going to study color harmonies. So these are sort of like the rules or the ideas of what colors look good together, okay? So I have the harmonies written here. What I want you to do is write the definition. So all of that information is for you in Schoology, so you'll write the definition. What is monochromatic? Monochromatic is one color plus black and white. So then in here, you'll pick your favorite color, and you can do various tints and shades and tones using, let's say, blue with black and white. You'll define complementary, split complementary, so on and so forth until that is completed, okay? So you want to do all of this before you start on your mandala. The second sheet, or third sheet, is your colored pencil practice. Now this is just printed on regular printer paper, not the greatest to color on, okay? So what I want you to do is use that scrap of illustration board, okay, that extra little piece that was cut before we started our mandalas, and you're going to create the same thing on your illustration board, okay? So the first thing is just sort of practicing coloring. So one color, one layer, so you can see what that looks like if it's just one layer, not pressing too hard. Then we want to stick to one color but change direction, so we're going to color vertically, horizontally, and then diagonally. Then we're going to try to build up a gradient using 3 layers, so 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers to make it darker. Tricolor, where we could use 3 related colors, so you could use a really light pink, a magenta and a red and create a gradient, or a light blue and dark blue. Okay, so they're next to each other on the color wheel, but we're going to create a gradient that way. And then this is using white to mix in with your gradient. Here we're actually seeing what happens when we mix two complementary colors. So you're going to try to layer and blend red to green, orange to blue, and yellow to violet. Here we're creating a tint, so using one color plus white, a tone using one color plus gray, and a shade using one color plus black. Then we have some different techniques down here called burnishing, blending with a solvent, rubbing alcohol, or using a watercolor wash. So these are things that we can use when we're all done if we need to blend further. So burnishing is when you press really hard with that colored pencil and it makes it shiny on top. You can kind of see how solid this is. So this is something you would do towards the end, because once you burnish, you can't blend in more color. So this has to be like a final step. Using the solvent is also a final step if you want to make your color area smooth, if you don't want to see any white spots. Then at the bottom of the page, you have an example of a sphere and 4 different techniques for coloring in a sphere. So on your illustration board, you can just draw 4 little circles, and you're going to practice creating a sphere using these highlights and shadows as a guide, using one color. So just pick one colored pencil. Here you're going to use analogous colors, so that means 3 to 5 colors in a row on the color wheel. So here we have a bluish color in the darkest area, green as your base color, and then a yellow-green for the highlights. Shade, so we're using black with the color, so that's this here, same thing. And how does that help us create the gradients needed to make the illusion of a 3-dimensional sphere? And then also complementary colors. So complementary colors can also make the other color look darker. So by adding in red, you're also creating shades. And then this is just another little practice cube to practice whatever sort of techniques you like and whatever colors that you like. Okay, so that's the first thing that you need to do before you actually start on your. Okay, so once you have your color wheel notes and your color harmony notes finished, so I actually redrew the grid directly in my sketchbook, so I could use the sketchbook page to color, because like I said, the smooth printer paper is not that great for coloring. But this is your way to sort of experiment with the different color harmonies and figure out which ones you like. So at this point, once this is all done, you'll say, okay, I like split complementary, okay? Or I like the complementary color scheme. So from there, you pick the colors that you want to use. You're not just going to go crazy and go, you know, like a rainbow explosion on this. So we want to pick colors that work well together because of the color harmony, okay? So we have our Prismacolor colored pencils, which are a slightly better color pencil than Crayola. These are still great, but these have a slightly more pigment to wax ratio. They have little numbers here that tell you what color they are, because just looking at these 2 colored pencils, right, they look very similar. But you may end up using, let's say, blue porcelain 373 on your piece, and then the next day you come in and you grab 306 thinking it's the same one, and it's not. So I would recommend definitely writing down the numbers that you're choosing to use. So after you've done this page and you've picked your favorite color harmony, you can use this and write down the numbers of the color pencils that you're choosing to use, okay? So I'm doing sort of a split complementary color scheme, so I'm using analogous blues and greens with like a yellow-orange to complement that in my piece. When you color, okay, we want to take our time, and we want to make sure that we're moving our pencil around, smooth strokes. We don't want pencil marks, and we want to create gradients wherever we're working. So I'm just going to start here. I'm making sure that my pencil is nice and sharp. I'm making sure that my hands are clean. We don't want to have Dorito dust on our final drawing. You can also grab a sheet of newsprint to work as a slip sheet, so as you're coloring, you're not getting any of the oils from your hand on your piece or colored pencil on your hand. So you're going to start with light pressure, and you can see I'm sort of gradually moving my pencil around, taking my time to fill this in. and maybe I want it darker on the edge, and I'll create a lighter area in the center, so that'll be my gradient. So you want to start with a light layer first to block in your colors, and then gradually build up darker areas where you want them. But in some areas it might look good with a flat color where it's just all one solid color, but the goal is to practice gradients and how we layer and blend colors. Okay, so here I use Copenhagen blue. I might jot this down, you know, on my sketchbook. Okay, I use 306. And write it with the color pencil so you know what color it is. See? There you go. That's 306. Okay. Then maybe I'll pick porcelain blue. And see, that's a little bit more of a blue-violet color. 373. Now I can go over the edge here and darken up the edge a little bit. And then maybe go back to my original and blend a little bit more. Okay, so that's the goal with your mandalas. This is an example I did last year, but you can see, you know, the purple to sort of a magenta color, the teal goes from darker to lighter. So you can blend from one color, blue, to more of a purpley blue, in the same area, or from one value to another, darker to lighter. You can also use black and white to help you create those different values. Okay, so that is how to color in your mandala in a nutshell, and I will continue coloring and you will see how that all works out. But hopefully you watched the previous video, so now you understand how to use those colored pencils. Now it's just a matter of planning out what color harmony you want to use and where you want to place those colors. Before you finish, keep in mind you can leave areas alone. So if there's negative space that you don't want to color, maybe that's this area here. Maybe I leave that alone. I don't want to color that in. Maybe this area I don't want color pencil in. Okay, we're going to paint that area later, or you can also leave it white. Sometimes it's important to have areas that are, you know, negative space, but we are going to paint the top part of this, or the background part of this, if there's space for that. Okay, so pick your color harmony and take your time and make sure you don't see any pencil strokes, and practice blending and layering and gradients. Happy coloring! As you're working on your piece, I would recommend working all the way around it. So right now I'm focused just on this corner here because it's the only corner I finished inking, right? But so that you don't forget what you're doing. So, you know, if you finish this area and you know, okay, well, each one of these parts of the design is going to be this color with this gradient, I'm going to do all of them. Okay, just move around your composition so you do each section exactly the same. If you don't want to do it exactly the same, that's fine. Make sure that that's just like a planned out thing. So maybe it's like these ones are going to be purple, and then as you move around, the next ones are going to be blue, purple, blue. Like, you can create patterns with your colors as you move around, but you want to create consistency, and usually every element in a mandala would be sort of the same color. But again, you can create patterns if you want. Just keep that in mind. So I would definitely recommend working around the whole piece as you go, not just say, I'm going to finish this corner, then I'm going to finish this corner. Move around and color the same things at the same time, or the same elements at the same time. Another thing I want to mention also is there are two different types of Prismacolors. One will say, you can see that says very thin. It's a little bit cut off from the sharpener, but one says very thin, and it's a hexagon shape. Okay, and then the other ones are round. I'm gonna perfectly round. And they say Scholar Prismacolor. So these ones are a softer pencil. They're good for coloring in larger areas. They don't stay as sharp as long, okay, but they're really nice rich colors and they're good for larger areas. The Very Thins stay sharper longer. They're a slightly harder pencil, so they're really good for tiny details. So like for something like this, if you have like a lot of little things that you all want a certain color, using the very thin ones is a good thing to do. If you want to color a large area, these are probably not the pencil for you, okay? So stick with the Scholar ones, the round pencils for larger areas, and if you need detail or you need precision, then you would want to use the Very Thins. So I just want to point that out. You can also, I'm probably going to give each of you a set of these to just kind of keep in your supply pouch there. So when you pick your Prismacolors for your project, keep them for the duration of the project. Put them in your pouch and leave them there so that they're yours for the duration. You know you have the colors you need. And you can intermingle these colored pencils. They're both colored pencils. It's all good. So you can, if there's a certain color in here, like you really want to use that pink. Prismacolor, I don't have a pink like that. So you can use them interchangeably. That's totally fine. You can practice on your scrap illustration board for anything. If you're like, oh, I wonder how this color looks and what happens if I blend it with this color. So you can use the rest of your illustration board to practice or to plan out what colors you want to use. Of course, you can also use your sketchbook. Okay, to recap, we are using the Scholar Prismacolor color pencils with the Very Thins if we need a harder pencil for smaller detail areas. And we can also intermix them with the Crayola colored pencils. When you pick your color harmony based on your color wheel, select the colored pencils you're going to use for the entire project and keep them until you're done. So you get these and you'll pick out the colors you're going to use from this set and keep them in your zipper pouch, okay? When you're working on your actual piece, after you're done inking and stylizing the line, keep in mind we want line variety in the width. We want to have rounded corners. We want to have tapered lines where they go from thin to thicker. Once that's done, you are going to erase the whole thing, get rid of all the extra pencil lines, anything, any kind of graphite that's showing, get rid of it. Use a nice big soft eraser for that job because we don't want to scratch our illustration board with a pencil eraser, okay? Get rid of the eraser boogers, and then you're ready to color after you have practiced, of course. Okay, and then when we're coloring in with our colored pencils, we want to, so pick something you're going to color. I'm going to color in this little triangle, so I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go here, and I'm going to move around and color them all at the same time so I know I'm using the same techniques, the same colored pencil, the same gradient or blending or whatever I'm doing. Then I'll move on. I'm going to color all the octopus's heads. There, done. Okay, so we want to create a nice pattern, a nice variety of color, and create some unity in our piece by using the color harmony appropriately. So I think the way I envision this piece, most of mine will be blues and purples with little pops of that orange and yellow just to add a little bit of contrast and interest. But overall, it'll be sort of an analogous color scheme using the blues and purples, okay? So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm gonna continue coloring and I cannot wait to see the finished products, what you guys are able to come up with. They're already looking fabulous, so I'm really excited to see you add color and have some fun with that. All right, and there will be one more video after this showing you how to paint the background if that's a choice you want to make in terms of finishing up your piece. Okay, so thanks for watching and happy coloring.